Schoology. Twitter?
No way.
Hashtag no way.
Hashtag yes way.
You know what? We need to debate this out.
I think so too.
Ready? Round one, user interface. Okay, you ready?
All right. I'll let you start.
Wait till you see what Schoology can do.
Yeah.
So, here is a short video showing how to set up online discussion. Oops. Here we go. I can do this. PowerPoint is not Schoology. Okay, so first you go down to the Add Materials button. You select the button, Add Discussion. You can title your discussion whatever it is, the topic that you're currently covering in class. So, what are some of the benefits and limitations of online discussion boards? Then you can hit Create. And you also can select a button that will allow Schoology to block out other student responses until the student has already submitted theirs. So it kind of helps students create that base viewpoint before adding and commenting on other people's views. And then if I go to Add Materials, and I can add a folder to keep all of my discussions highly organized. Because as teachers, if we're going to do online discussions, let's face it, there's going to be multiple discussions. So I created a Grade 14 conference folder. And then if I go to my discussions, and I click the edit button, I can add it easily to that folder so that if you can keep all of your classes, courses, and units easily organized in one central location. One of the best parts about Schoology is that it mimics the Facebook user interface. It's a form that the students already know and are familiar with, and it kind of harnesses that energy and directs it towards the classroom and to your subject matter. So if you look at the basic layout of this discussion, you don't have to read it, I know the print's really tiny, but I just want you to see that here's my question, and here are my responses, just like on Facebook. So they can reply, they can like things, and for your teaching needs, there's a timestamp, so we can make sure that kids aren't posting it 3 a.m. the night before. Boom.
Facebook called them and wants its user interface back. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why Twitter is better at discussions. While Schoology might have some good qualities to their discussion board, there is nothing that is better than the hashtag. Everybody is familiar with a hashtag, or almost everybody is. And now one of the beauties of Twitter is that your students already use it. So why not harness that energy to use Twitter and use it in the classroom? Now if we're working with discussion boards or responding or giving feedback, as we'll discuss a little bit later, you're going to use the hashtag. Now in my classroom, I use a unique hashtag. So whatever class that might be, maybe the unit that we're teaching, something that we're discussing, it's got to be unique. Now the reason why I keep it unique is that once the student attaches a hashtag to the end of their tweet, they all stay together. So if you search for that tweet, as shown right here, this is an example that we used, great Mac versus PC debate, just to give you guys an example. Now when you search for that hashtag, you are going to see all of my students' responses because they included that hashtag. Now another beauty of the hashtag is you can attach multiple hashtags to your tweet. So say you want to participate in a larger discussion or a worldwide or countrywide discussion, then you can attach that as well as your classroom specific one. So I think that's probably better. I think Twitter wins this one.
Hashtag, not a chance.
All right, well, fine. We'll move on to round 2 then.
Monitoring the discussion. Okay, so Cory and I can agree on monitoring the discussion. We all agree as educators that digital citizenship is a huge issue in our schools. It has been our experience that as long as students have a very defined task and a clear outlining of rules, they tend to be on task and not veer into any kind of aggressive territory. Actually, we've also found that as long as students are engaged, and even if they wander off a little bit, that's one of the best parts of online discussion, including those organic kind of tangents that you would get in a normal classroom. As always, as educators, we want to set clear boundaries on respect in our classroom, but on the whole, it doesn't tend to be a huge issue. Plus, we want our students to start learning that even though it's on Twitter, or even if it's on Schoology, which is created specifically for classrooms, I'm just saying, sorry, I'll go back to neutral territory, they need to learn how to function online in a more professional manner. And the earlier on that we start this, the better. All right, ready to start this back up?
Right.
Okay,
Go for it.
round 2, monitoring the discussion. So, if I want to monitor which student commented which comments or which tweets, which in my version it looks more like a paragraph, I'm just saying, all you have to do is click filter by user and select the student that it is that you're trying to follow, and this is how it will look. This is not an edited image. Schoology does this for you. It highlights the specific comments by that student. So if I want to follow Bob's comments, I click the button, I click his student name, and I can see his comments easily, clearly, for my grading purposes. What have you got there?
I'll admit it's pretty cool, but look at how big it is. Look at all the paragraphs. What we want is a natural discussion. Now, if a student raises his hand in class, yes, sometimes he's going to say a paragraph length response, but oftentimes it's going to be short, simple, to the point. And that's what Twitter does. Twitter is easy to follow, and it's easy to read because it's short and simple. Limiting your students to 140 characters makes it short and sweet. Oh, I'm sorry. All right.
Ready for this?
Round 3.
Grading. Now, I guarantee you Schoology has this round beat. If I knew a boxer, I'd reference it right now. I'm just a knockout round. Nerdy. Okay, Muhammad Ali. Right, we got this. Okay. English major, don't judge me. Grading is customizable. It has customizable categories and rubrics, so you can upload your own personal rubric to Schoology to measure student success against. This is crucial in our classrooms. It's really hard to find a tool out there that may fit perfectly exactly what it is you're looking for. Schoology compensates for that by allowing you to upload your rubrics. And it also allows for direct and private feedback. We'll watch one more short clip here and show you how to set up your grade book. So you go to grade setup. Notice I can create categories. I have a discussion category already created. What if I want to add a category for reading, for articles that I have linked through Schoology? I create the reading category, I can weight it by total points or percent, and I just click create. I can even drop the lowest score. Also, notice that I have a grading periods and final weights category, so if I want to weight grades or have a grading period a specific amount of time, and the grading scale can be numeric or letter grades. So if I save my changes and then go up to my grade book, you will see that it looks very much like our own grade books we're already using. It has clear categories where I can enter percentages, and I can even write my comments to my students and select whether I'm ready to display that to that student yet. So if I want to make sure everyone's are done first, I can do that. Also, for our easy grading purposes, if we go to our discussions and we look at our student comments, you will see that you can click next to the student comments, and you can enter the grade right there along with the comment that directly and privately goes directly to that student. So I can tell Mr. Chris Sloan, who may or may not be in this audience right now, great job in the comment, but it wasn't an A+. Boom, drop the mic. What you got now?
Now, what happens if you already have a grade book? What happens if you don't want 2 grade books here and another one there and your school makes you use one? Well, I'm in that situation right here at my school, and I have found a way to use Twitter that I can grade it and give students feedback. We'll get to the feedback just a little bit later, but right now for grading, I grade on participation. And there are multiple ways that students can participate via Twitter. We've already talked about the hashtag, in which students can add that hashtag and it gets out to anybody else who searches for that hashtag, so keeping that discussion going. Other tools that are available are the reply button. Simple enough, click reply and you're replying directly to somebody or even multiple people if you have multiple Twitter handles in the tweet. The retweet button is another way my students can participate. And by doing that, they are retweeting or sharing that tweet out again because they find it important or thought-provoking, whatever it may be. The final way that they can participate is by favoriting. There's a little star on there that you can click if you like a tweet. And that saves it for you so you can reference it later. Now, I give them a grade for participation, making sure that they are thinking out their tweets, that they're not just putting yes or no. That's a boring tweet. We don't really care. We want to hear what you really think. So if they put some thought into it, again, we want this to be a natural discussion, so the students don't necessarily have to spend an hour thinking out a tweet, but put a little bit more thought into it than yes or no, and I'll grade them on participation. So just making sure that they're active in that discussion. All right, I think we could take a little break right here.
Yeah, I think this intense competition thing needs a breather, and I think that you all need a breather to actually get on these tools and explore them. So we're going to do a progress report. I want you to speak either with your neighbor or online about the benefits and limitations of using Schoology or Twitter, about the 3 topics that we've discussed so far: user interface, monitoring the discussion, or grading. If you'd like to join on Schoology, here is my class. All you have to do is click sign up, select student, and enter your code. It will ask for your name or email. You do not have to put your email in, which makes this safe for elementary school students. You can just put in a username, and that's fine. So you can log on to Schoology and comment there. You can talk with your neighbor, or you can
follow our Twitter hashtag at Great14Debate. Now, most of you, I assume, have Twitters. As Katie brought up, there is an age requirement to have a Twitter. Now, you know some kids are getting around that. Of course, I taught middle school and they had Twitters. But most of you probably do have a Twitter, so go ahead and follow along at hashtag Great14Debate. As we move on later on, feel free to look at the backboard if you need to remember that hashtag or how to log on to Schoology. Also, as a reminder, we have Dan in the back. He is also monitoring both Schoology and Twitter and conversing with you. Again, we'll revisit these later on.
All right,
but
2-minute breather.
Yeah, take about 2 minutes right now to look through those and investigate.
Well, if you have like so let's say it's enjoy it. So it's like how I'm following this right now. This is the
Katie.
So if I just search for that.
I got a question. But you can tell
Correct.
the monitor. So if they pose a question, no one replies. So that's kind of my goal.
So on one hand, you know, this wasn't
I did it down from Michelle.
Yeah.
I think that's profile. I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think there's like I know, but I never feel like it should be right if you have. I was just thinking about it list it because we do get stuff when people get. We do live in Idaho. I know.
Right, yeah, so you know if they talk about
I
what
don't
you saw.
Yeah, he did ours like
Right. So you know if somebody's like,
oh yeah, it's like because ours was very.
Or the opposite, like
At Hurst Court. At Hurst Court. Hashtag, you ready to finish this?
Yeah, of course I'm ready.
All right, you ready?
All right. Round 4. Classroom networking.
Classroom networking. So, on Schoology, all you have to do is when you go to your discussions, if I see my Mac versus PC debate, all I have to select is the Join Shared button, and I am able to connect my hours. So if I teach multiple hours of the same subject, but I want them to be on a collaborative discussion, I am able to do that. Or I can collaborate with various teachers in the school with this button. The only downside is that you have to know the teacher to get the code to be able to share your discussions with them. So I might lose this round. It's okay, I'll come back in the next one.
Oh yeah, I'm totally going to beat Schoology here. Twitter offers a world of networking. In your classroom, outside of your classroom with your class, or you can go beyond that and you can connect with organizations or individuals. As we've mentioned before, we've already talked about the hashtag, but now we're going to talk about Twitter handles. Your students will each have an individual Twitter handle in order to network, so that they will follow you, you will follow them if you choose to. And then the beauty of it is that organizations around the world, individuals around the world, experts from around the world also have Twitter handles. Many, many of them do. Now in your class you can keep a back channel going, sort of like we're doing right here. Now I won't be able to necessarily monitor the discussion while it's going on in class, but I can revisit those at the end of class or at the end of the day. And maybe a student has the answer for a fellow student. So they're able to go through that back channel rather than slowing down the pace of the class, or if they're just afraid to ask a question out loud, whatever it may be, offers them another opportunity to keep that discussion going. Now, as I mentioned, you can also continue outside of the classroom. So at nighttime or during the weekend, say I post a question for discussion, or I want students to talk about a certain issue or a certain current event, they can do so from home. What they can also do is connect with individuals and organizations. I've given a few examples up here. This is NASA's Twitter page. NASA is just one of many, many organizations that have a Twitter page. So anything specific to NASA, they're going to put up here, just like the launch the other day. So if my students want to ask somebody from NASA a question or comment on one of their pictures that they have shared, they can very easily do that. We can also become politically active, and I've done this in my class as well. This is President Obama's Twitter page here. It's mostly run by his advisors or his staff, but you can still tweet at President Obama, which it makes it kind of unique for the students. It's like they're almost interacting directly with that individual. So we can become politically active, asking them questions, giving them comments, speaking our mind, and hopefully getting something back from him. And finally, we can also interact with authors. Just another opportunity. So if we're in a literacy class, an English class, we can interact, ask them questions about their books or maybe their inspirations, why they wrote the way they did. So I quite clearly have Schoology beat here because Schoology is contained within itself. Twitter is not. We have a world of possibilities. Boom.
All right. Let's get to the next round. I need to keep moving around.
You can try to recover.
Okay. All right. Ready?
Round 5.
Revisiting the prior discussions. So, discussions are supposed to help augment and enhance our students' understanding of a given topic, right? And one of the downsides to having those conversations in class is students may not be able to remember everything that they said or everything that they found on a given issue. Revisiting prior discussions online allows them to do that. On Schoology, it's easy, clear, and accessible because it's like an archive. All of the discussions are always saved and neatly in their folders that I showed you earlier. So at any point, a student can refer back to a prior discussion or any materials that you posted on Schoology and easily access those materials. I don't know how to put this any more simply. Schoology,
I've got a good response to that. Twitter, again, we talked about that hashtag. That hashtag allows us to revisit tweets, but we can go beyond Twitter. So that hashtag is going to bring up a collection of tweets about maybe your class discussion. But I want to introduce you, if you have not already tried it out, to Storify. Now Storify, we've used it in classes. I've used it in classes before. And it allows you to almost tell a story. Pretty much tell a story about maybe a day, a unit, maybe an event that's happening around the world, or maybe a discussion that you had. And what I found is great about Storify is that I can pull specific tweets from Twitter and enter them into a story, or a Storify. So rather than reading through all of these tweets, maybe they're not all important, we can pull specific students' tweets out, and it makes it into a Storify like so. You can see my initial question at the top there, and then I've pulled out some specific tweets that I want students to pay attention to. We can revisit this the day after the discussion, the week, the month, the semester for a review, and students are able to access this on their own time. What you can also do is beyond your classroom. Maybe you're teaching them about an event or a current event that's happening. I chose the World Cup here as an example just because it happened the other day. But I've pulled out specific pictures from the World Cup and specific tweets from FIFA or from the Bundesliga or the German team. And they show pictures about that event. So sharing is capturing the story for your students. Just a nice way of compiling some very important tweets. Pretty sure I won that one.
I don't know. That was pretty hotly debated. I think we need to take it to round 6.
Round
Ready?
6.
Grab bag benefits. Okay, this is the final round. This is where I sink it. Okay, this is the swoosh. That's a basketball.
We'll see.
Right? All right. Grab it. Are you bracing yourself? Are you ready? Okay. All
I know
right.
I can be here.
Okay. So, if we look at Schoology, they are not just limited to discussions. As you can see on your homepage, you have the opportunity for assessments, tests and quizzes, files and links. Here's where I can provide students with any outside resources and websites that I would like them to be able to access. I also, as previously discussed, can organize according to folders. This is from one of my United States literature courses. And I created a Learn the Address worksheet where I embedded Jimmy Kimmel saying the Gettysburg Address, my attempt at making it more interesting for the kids with the questions. And also I created a folder called Quality Discussion Responses where I included materials that I have written in hopes that they will remember the standards that they are being held to, as well as another discussion board. But one of my favorite aspects of Schoology is the updates. Just like Facebook, because it's a good thing, I can write, remember to study for your test tomorrow. And if I click post, and then go to my materials page, at home in my courses, you will see that it's still neat and tidy, that the status updates don't intrude on that space, especially late in the semester. We all know we have hundreds of things posted. But there it is on my homepage. So as soon as that student logs into Schoology, that reminder is right there for them. Oh, I can't handle it. I'm just winning so bad. Go ahead.
All right, fine. Let's put it this way. Put yourself into the shoes of an 11-year-old. And that 11-year-old has just left school. Maybe he's gone to soccer practice or to hang out with his friends after school. Is he going to log on to Schoology? Is that going to be first thing on his mind?
In my world.
Yeah, in the teacher's world it is. But let's say that you want your students to get reminders right on their phone very, very quickly. Twitter is the way to do that. Twitter, you can respond to your students and you can remind them about things and you can actually connect with parents as well. I've set up separate accounts. So I have my personal account, which is pretty much all teaching anyway, but I have another account for my classroom. And that account is specific for students and parents who want to connect with me on an educational basis. I am able to remind them about tests coming up, or projects that are due, or a field trip, and not to forget their lunch, which many students will do. I can also give feedback, and this is where I want to get to the feedback bit, because Schoology, we've already talked about the feedback there, but Twitter is amazing as well. And Twitter has the reply feature, as we talked about, where you can reply to a student's tweet to give them feedback. And you can also private message the student. You could also private message a parent if you need to. Give them feedback about the tweet, about their presence in the discussion, whatever it may be. Finally, in order to win, I want to talk about some of the activities that I've done on Twitter. There is a whole range of possibilities based on the class that you teach. You can interact with certain organizations, you can have discussions with your class, but these are a few things that I have done. The first one, I've tweeted in character. So I've had my students take on the roles of certain historical figures in an event, tweeting as they would, and kind of conversing with each other about that event. Makes it kind of unique and makes them think creatively. We've become politically active. As I told you when we were looking at President Obama's Twitter feed, my students have interacted with politicians, asking them questions, speaking their mind about something, and hopefully getting a reply from them so they can interact. That's very cool for the students if they're able to do that. Rather than just reading it out of the newspaper, well, to be honest, most students don't read the newspaper, reading it offline or hearing it on the news, they're going to be able to talk with them directly. Finally, we've collaborated on creative writing. So the students can maybe make a story or a poem together, and each one is going to individually add to that story to keep it going. Keep in mind that Twitter only allows you to do 140 characters, so a student can't ramble on and on and on, like those paragraphs in Schoology, but they keep it short and sweet, and we have a story. So again, there are many, many opportunities for your students, and I think I just won.
Did you really?
I did.
You know what? I think we need to take 3 minutes and allow you, the audience, to explore the tools, identify maybe where your loyalties lie, and I'm going to be the bigger person here. It's okay if you can see the benefits of both, as long as you side more with me. Right.
I guess. We'll come back in a few minutes and we'll discuss your findings and answer any questions that you have.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
Where was that?
Oh, that was in my course. I can move it over to the. I'll move it over to the green. Okay. Because it's easy on Schoology. I can't do it without exiting out. Okay. Here, Katie, can you show us how to do it? I have to exit out.
That's okay.
All right, I will do that though.
Yeah.
As long as this is just
next year. Okay. So then okay, and so I put it down.
All the Greeks, so you called the others, all the Greeks, so I just made it up and then.
I don't know if they have it, it's fine, because we don't have it.
I know. This one actually required to have it.
But in the math, I'm sure.
Yeah, they have it.
That's a great question. See, I actually tried to put it in the great short. I think that Schoology took the best of it model of trying to get further the discussions that are about the highlighting features of the students, like making sure and the blacking out before you submit the slides.
I would love to have 10 and that's like
Google is doing it for that. And then that article is a blog post.
Yeah, we have it in our budget. So I went to get my student name. A month later, they were in, and it says this is which is like, and that's So are you mulling over your interview with her head?
It's a community Twitter, so it's like combining the best of both worlds. My intent Twitter is I'm very distracted.
Thanks.
And I don't want to listen to the conversations that we talk about. So I like closed.
Super professional.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's, you have to be certain.
I don't want it to go. Yeah. All right. Which is why Twitch needs
All right, Hurst, Cory. You ready?
I'm ready.
I think that we need to hear some of the amazing ideas that I've already heard in the audience. But before we go into exploring your viewpoints on these two social mediums, I think it's pretty important for us to bury the hatchet.
Settle our differences and agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. All right. So, has anyone used Twitter or Schoology in their classroom? And if so, what were your experiences? Or is there anything that stood out to anyone about either of these tools?
Quick question.
Yes.
Why did you pick Twitter against Schoology? Because I would have thought Schoology and Modo were more similar.
So,
Because it's like, as I just tweeted, it's like comparing the World Series and the World Cup based on the world.
but what we wanted to do is kind of compare a more organic format where it really limits student responses. It kind of keeps a more natural conversation going because it's so short. And then I looked at Schoology or Edmodo because I actually was introduced to Edmodo first. But Schoology kind of takes the best of Edmodo and goes like 10 steps further. So if you look on the Schoology course page for grade 14, under the resources and links tab, there's a blog post comparing Edmodo and Schoology and why Schoology kind of has moved past, for at least what I believe Edmodo can do.
I train a lot of teachers, and as a teacher, I wouldn't really be using Twitter the way I would be using Twitter with other teachers. And like, it's just the disconnect I have is that it's apple and oranges. And it might have been a more engaging argument to trash out Edmodo against Schoology, because Schoology isn't really that common in Ireland as Edmodo is, whereas it'd be more of an engaging conversation to find out where does it go from here, or where
Right.
things are.
Yeah. We know it's a juxtaposition. Yeah.
I was just going to say that I kind of like that about it because the point that Cory made, because the whole time you were introducing Schoology, which I've never seen before, I was thinking that's so cool, I like everything about it. But the point that he made, that Twitter is something that students already often use and check, and it's not something that they have to like remember to log into, it kind of got me a little bit because I was automatically like, this is really good because I don't use Twitter and I generally don't like it. But that is, no, that's Cory. But that is something that I think is a really good point, that they are already using it, so it's easy for them to get notifications from you, and you can't say, oh, I forgot to log in and do it. It's like, no, that's a lie.
Yeah, and Schoology has, I think, done a good job of trying to keep the format of Facebook, which is good, because students are familiar with it. But it would be nice, I think, to have the same kind of notification tool that Twitter does, because with Schoology, you don't enter your email address.
And students obsessively check Twitter, at least mine do. I do think that there's a lot of strength to be said about tweeting out, hey, everyone's having a problem with number 14, check my class website, or something like that, that students can actively
adapt and just use.
adopt. Twitter is much more organic. Schoology, you're buying into a system.
We have questions?
Any other questions or observations?
Well, I was just going to say, like, going off of the idea that students already have Twitter accounts, it's like using it in the classroom as a way for them to create a positive digital footprint for themselves, because they're going to have that and people are going to be looking at
I
that.
love that phrase, positive digital footprint.
Yeah, we did an activity the other week where we had others go online and try to almost dig up dirt about us. Luckily, nobody had anything bad, but you know, the students now, they're growing up with all of this, whereas I think, I don't know, MySpace maybe came out towards the middle of high school or so, but now students they're growing up with Twitter and Facebook at a very young age, so if they don't have that positive digital footprint, like you mentioned, then some very bad things could come up later on when they're trying to get hired.
The earlier we start having conversations about appropriateness online, I think the better. Chris, did you put your hand raised?
I was going to say, I've used Twitter with my class. So there's this, KQED is a Bay Area in the U.S. Media outlet. They have a Do Now program where every week they post like some current event and you talk about it. You know, so students around the country engage in, you know, discussions about it. And that's actually a pretty positive thing. And to go off what Rochelle just said, it's also it shows a more well-rounded digital footprint, because I think they use social networks a lot to develop their social self. But I think stuff like this, you know, classroom use of Twitter, also develops like an academic part of their personality that they don't often have an excuse to, or don't often explore as much as they could. So yeah, I would say to add to that digital footprint, not only is it positive, but it's another aspect of themselves that they need to develop.
Very much so. And I was just brought to an article today about an ed chat for students in New Zealand. So there's a different topic each week, and different schools will have their students participate in this chat so that they're connecting with other students around the country. So I thought that was pretty cool, just like you mentioned, using the same hashtag, using the same topic to help communicate together and work together.
All right, so thank you for all your comments. Just a quick outline of the benefits of Twitter.
All right, so we talked about the hashtag and its importance. You're able to follow your class discussions, more worldwide discussions. We talked about the easy management of Twitter. You're able to go back and review your students' profiles or go on to their Twitter feeds. We talked about networking within your classroom, with your class outside of the classroom, and with external organizations and individuals. And we talked about the creative potential with thousands of opportunities that you have available with your students. You just have to be creative, look around.
And on Schoology, we have a well-organized format that was built for schools and really can be used within schools as great grading features. And then, of course, again, that creative potential of all of the things that you can do online, allowing your students to support their arguments with hyperlinks, pictures, GIFs, GIFs, sorry. That's supposed to be GIFs. I know GIFs. Okay, so we both want to thank you for coming. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, here are our Twitter handles. And please take our survey. It can be linked through the website, so if you have the Grade 14 website up and going, we are the Grade 14 debate, and you can take that survey. And thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.